Welcome to Practical Thoughts channel. In this video, we talk about heredity. In heredity, we're looking at inherited traits. In 1910, a black patient came to Dr. Herrick's clinic. The patient was pale and weak. He was a severely anemia patient. The doctor uses all medicines that can treat anemia, but they are not effective for this patient. During the blood test of the patient, it was found that the red blood cells were not a normal round cake shape under the microscope, but a long and curved sickle shape, so it was called sickle cell anemia. In 1956, British scientist Ingram discovered that on a polypeptide chain of hemoglobin in patients with sickle cell anemia, the glutamic acid at position 6 was replaced by valine, and discovered the true cause of sickle cell anemia, which is to control hemoglobin. There is a base change in the formed gene, and the structural change of hemoglobin makes red blood cells sickle-shaped, easy to rupture, and suffer from hemolytic anemia. Take albinism as an example. The patient's body produces tyrosinase gene abnormality, which leads to the inability to synthesize tyrosine normally, so that it cannot convert melanin normally, which manifests as hypopigmentation of skin and hair. Through these two cases, we can draw the following conclusions. Genes can directly control biological traits by controlling protein synthesis, or they can control metabolic processes by controlling enzyme synthesis, and indirectly control the expression of the shape of organisms. The Practical Thoughts channel found that the human genome consists of 30,000 to 40,000 genes, all of which are located on 23 pairs of chromosomes. Every cell in the human body contains two lists of genes, one from the mother and one from the father. Genes store the blueprint for constructing human body information, which can determine our physical and psychological characteristics. Generally speaking, most traits of organisms are controlled by a single gene, such as the tall and short stems of peas. However, some traits are determined by multiple genes, such as human height. The traits controlled by a single gene in the human body include eyelids, eye color, hair, head shape, etc., and traits controlled by multiple genes include skin color, blood pressure, height and weight, intelligence, personality, even attitude and occupational preferences, etc. Traits controlled by multiple genes are susceptible to environmental influences and are not as stable as single-gene traits. Genes can determine the expression of traits, but genes are not the only determinant of traits. Human traits are also affected by environmental conditions, which are the result of the combined effect of human genotype and environmental conditions. Some traits are greatly influenced by genes, but less by the external environment. One of the main goals of genetic research is to determine the percentage of trait differences attributed to genetic and environmental factors. For example, the degree of muscle development, hemorrhagic anemia, alcoholic liver, and the flexibility and extension of joints are more affected by external environmental conditions. For height, environmental factors and genetic factors are both important. It is not difficult to find that the height of children born to taller parents is higher than the average height of children of the same age, and the height of children born to shorter parents is lower than the average height of children of the same age. Genetic studies have confirmed that about 90% of the differences in height between individuals are due to genetics, and the effect of environmental factors is quite weak, accounting for only about 10%. However, looking at the average height changes in the United States over the past century, the average height of adults has increased by about 2 inches, which is the effect of people's nutrition getting better and better as the economy develops. In other words, the environment is not without effect in changing the degree of difference. Practical Thoughts channel here. By the way, the influence of genes on people's choice preference is generally called active gene-environment correlation, which means that people with a certain genotype actively create or seek a certain environment. For example, high sensation seekers will tend to expose themselves to stimulating environments, and such people are more willing to participate in activities such as skydiving and racing. For another example, people with thinking and intellectual genes are more inclined to participate in activities such as speeches, reading, and debates. Living creatures have a tendency to look for an environment that matches their genotype. In recent years, the development of behavioral genetics has entered the field of molecular genetics. The association research method can be used to determine whether an individual with a certain gene is better or worse in a certain personality trait than an individual who does not have the gene. A very important research result is that D4 are 4 on the short arm of chromosome 11. The protein gene encoding is called dopamine receptor, and its function is to respond to the neurotransmitter dopamine. Dopamine, a conductive substance, is mainly responsible for the brain's desires, feelings, and transmission of excitement and happiness. In short, it is related to addiction. The feeling of love that corresponds to the biochemical level is related to the role played by the large amount of dopamine produced in the brain. Smoking can increase the secretion of dopamine, making addicts happy and excited. The function of dopamine to transmit happiness and excitement is medically used to treat depression. When we are actively doing something, the brain will very actively secrete a large amount of dopamine. It is a brain neurotransmitter that causes human desires. Individuals with long D4DR gene copies are less sensitive to dopamine than individuals with short D4DR gene copies, so they will want to look for novelty and increase dopamine. Therefore, D4DR is one of the genes that have an important impact on personality traits. The Practical Thoughts channel also learned through inquiring information that the chromosomes carrying genetic information all appear in pairs. The traits represented by the two genes are different. If the trait represented by one of the genes will be displayed, it will cover up the traits of the other gene in the same pair of genes, making it impossible to express. The former gene is called the dominant gene, and the latter is called it is a recessive gene. Usually the dominant allele can be translated into a functional protein, while the recessive allele cannot be translated. Recessive gene is used to describe an allele. Such recessive traits will only be expressed when a pair of genotypes of the organism are recessive genes. If an allele affects the phenotype regardless of whether it is homogeneous or heterogeneous, it is called dominant. This important theory can be used to explain some genetic phenomena. For example, a child's parents have single and double eyelids as a typical example. Double eyelids are dominant genes, represented by capital A. Single eyelids are recessive genes, represented by lowercase z. When a child gets a genetic combination of AA or AA from a parent, the child will have double eyelids, and only when the genetic combination obtained is AA, will it show the traits of a single eyelid. According to the current research results, genetic science can be used for the screening of embryonic genetic diseases, damaged genes repair, and other positive work. Genetic technology can be used not only to treat diseases, but also to change human characteristics such as intelligence, personality, and specialties. In theory, through genetic technology, we can create a long-lived, smart, strong, beautiful, and non-infected baby. This baby can maintain such characteristics until old, but this has also caused ethical controversy. Such technology seriously destroys the natural laws of human inheritance and may cause unknown and uncontrollable consequences. Therefore, the scientific community currently prohibits the application of any clinically related gene editing technology to change traits on human embryos. The controversy is not only on the technical level, eugenics believes that people should encourage people with certain characteristics to give birth to offspring, and restrict people who do not have these characteristics or have characteristics that people do not like. This makes people worry that this idea will be expanded by some people and become an excuse for some people to advocate the creation of superior nations and eliminate other races. This issue introduces some basic knowledge about genes and traits, and later we will carry out some important analysis applications related to this in life. Our channel considers some interesting questions from the perspectives of social engineering, personality psychology, logic, statistics, genetics, and so on. We hope you enjoy the Practical Thoughts channel. By discussing useful knowledge and building consensus, we help each other reduce anxiety, doubts, and unnecessary fears, and improve our ability to defend ourselves when encountering fraud. A broad consensus is an effective guarantee for maintaining a good living environment and social system. You are welcome to share different views, discuss with everyone, and jointly maintain the correct consensus and value. Your support is the biggest motivation for our efforts. Thank you for watching our video.